If your study plan collapses by Tuesday, listen close, because you're not undisciplined. You're just running the wrong system. You've done this before. Sunday night, you swear it's different. Fresh notebook, perfect schedule, desk cleaned like you're about to become a new person. Then Monday arrives, and somehow your hand reaches for your phone like it's a reflex you didn't agree to. One scroll becomes 10 minutes. 10 minutes becomes a full hour. And when you finally look up, it's midnight again, with the textbook still untouched and that same heavy thought. What is wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. What's wrong is the lie you were taught, that motivation comes first and discipline follows. In real life, motivation is a flaky roommate. It shows up when it feels like it, then disappears when you need it most. This is the story of a 20-year-old student named Carter. Everyone called him smart. Teachers saw it, his family believed it, but behind the scenes, he was quietly falling apart. Missed deadlines, last-minute cramming, and grades that didn't reflect his potential. Stay with me, because the habit that saved Carter isn't complicated, and if you're the kind of person who leads yourself instead of begging for inspiration, you'll use it tonight. Carter didn't look like someone who was failing. He still showed up to class, he still nodded at the right moments, he still cracked a joke with friends on the way out of the lecture hall. From the outside, he was fine. But inside, his life was a quiet mess. His grades weren't crashing in some dramatic movie scene. They were slipping, little by little. A quiz he should have nailed came back average. A paper he could have written well got turned in late and rushed. He started calculating how many points he could afford to lose and still pass, like survival was the goal instead of growth. And the most dangerous part? He kept telling himself it wasn't real yet. I'm just tired this week. Once midterms are over, I'll lock in. Next week will be different. Every Monday, Carter rebuilt the fantasy. He made plans that looked like discipline, color-coded schedules, study blocks, goals written in clean handwriting like a new identity. He wasn't stupid. He was actually good at thinking about work. He loved the feeling of a fresh start. But by Wednesday, the plan was gone. Not because anything huge happened, nothing dramatic, no emergency, no tragedy, just the usual. A little stress, a little boredom, a little social pull, and that constant glow of a phone that always offered something easier. He'd sit down to study and open his laptop, then check one notification, then reply to one message, then watch one short video, and suddenly he was in that foggy state where time disappears, half-focused, half-numb, fully stuck. At night, he'd feel the pressure creep in. He would promise himself, "Okay, tomorrow I'm serious." And tomorrow he'd repeat the same cycle. Carter lived in a shared apartment near campus with a roommate named Oliver. Quiet, consistent, the kind of guy who didn't talk much but somehow always had his life under control. Oliver wasn't a genius. He just did what he said he would do. Carter noticed it in small ways. Oliver would be at his desk at the same time every evening. No hype, no dramatic grind mode, just there, reading, solving problems, writing, like it was as normal as brushing his teeth. Carter, meanwhile, would get bursts of energy, 2 frantic days before an exam, fueled by panic and caffeine. He would study hard, sure, but it felt like sprinting on a broken ankle. Then he'd crash for a week, then restart the plan, then fail to follow it. And every Sunday night, his dad called. Same question, same tone that tried to sound casual but carried weight. "How are classes going?" "Good, I'm keeping up." It was never true. His dad worked long hours. Nothing glamorous, just steady work, overtime shifts, sacrifice. Carter never heard his father complain, but that almost made it worse, because Carter could feel the unspoken message in every call. Don't waste this. After those calls, Carter would stare at the ceiling and feel something heavier than stress. It wasn't fear of failure. It was fear of becoming the kind of man who always almost does it. He had a version of himself in his head, disciplined, focused, dependable, the type of guy who sits down and works whether he feels like it or not. the guy who doesn't need a motivational speech to open a book. But every day, that version felt further away, and Carter didn't know the name of the problem. He thought he needed a better plan, a better technique, a better app, a better mood, a better why. What he didn't understand yet was simple and brutal. The gap between potential and results isn't intelligence, it's repetition. It's what you do when nobody's watching. It's what you do on the days you don't feel special. It's what you do when your brain begs for comfort. And Carter was about to hit the moment that exposes everyone, the moment when being smart is no longer enough. Carter thought he had time. He thought he could keep surviving week to week and one day magically become the disciplined version of himself. Then midterms arrived. Not with fireworks, not with some dramatic warning, just a cold, ordinary Tuesday morning where the campus air felt heavier than usual and the exam room smelled like dry paper and panic. Economics. A class Carter kept telling himself he understood. He'd attended most lectures. He had the slides saved. He'd even started studying 4 days before, which, by his standards, felt responsible. But 4 days of anxious, distracted studying isn't studying. It's negotiating with fear. The night before the exam, Carter sat at his desk and stared at the same paragraph for 10 minutes straight. His eyes moved, but nothing went in. He kept rereading, hoping the meaning would magically appear. Then he grabbed his phone, just for a quick break, and the screen swallowed him. When he snapped back, it was 1:17 a.m. His stomach dropped. He tried to cram anyway, but now his brain was loud, scattered, and exhausted. It wasn't learning anymore. It was drowning. Exam day. He walked into the hall with that fake calm people wear when they're afraid to admit they're unprepared. Rows of students, pens clicking, pages flipping. The professor's voice sounded miles away. "Begin." Carter looked at question 1, and his body went cold. He knew the topic. He remembered seeing it. He remembered thinking he understood it, but the words wouldn't organize themselves. The logic wouldn't line up. The confidence to write, real, structured reasoning wasn't there. It felt like reaching into your pocket for keys you swear you had and grabbing nothing but air. He forced himself to write something. It came out messy, unclear, half right. Question 2 was worse. By question 3, his hand started shaking, not visibly, but enough that he felt it in the pen. His mind kept whispering the same sentence like a threat. You did this to yourself. He left 2 questions nearly blank, not because he didn't care, because he didn't have it. When time was called, the room emptied fast, students laughing, talking about answers, already moving on. Carter walked out slower, like the hallway lights were too bright. 2 weeks later, the grade posted. He passed. Barely. Bottom quarter of the class. That night, he got an email from his academic advisor. Short, polite, surgical. We encourage you to reflect on your study habits before final examinations. Carter stared at that sentence for a long time. No anger, no tears, just exhaustion. He wasn't tired of school. He was tired of himself. Tired of the Monday promises, tired of next week, tired of feeling like he was always one decision away from changing and never making it. That evening, Carter went to the university library, not to study. He just sat there in the quiet, watching other students work, steady, calm, not dramatic. Some of them were there when he arrived at 7 p.m. When he got up to leave at 9, they were still there. Same pace, same focus, like discipline was normal. And in that moment, Carter finally understood something that hit like a punch. Maybe the problem wasn't that he couldn't do it. Maybe the problem was that he kept waiting to feel like it. If you've ever lived that exact moment where you're sick of your own excuses, drop a comment 1 right now. Not for me, for you. Because that's the line. People who admit the pattern can break it. People who pretend repeat it. And right when Carter stood up to leave, someone noticed him. An older librarian, calm and unhurried, walked over and set a cup of water on the table. He looked at Carter like he'd seen this story 1,000 times. "Exam results?" he asked. Carter froze, and that question was the beginning of everything changing. The librarian didn't repeat himself. He didn't lecture. He just stood there, calm in a way that made Carter feel even more exposed. Carter swallowed. "Yeah," he admitted. "I passed. Barely." The man nodded like that answer matched the look on Carter's face perfectly. "I've been in this library a long time," he said. "I know what barely looks like." Something in Carter cracked, not in a dramatic way, but like a knot loosening after months of being pulled too tight. He found himself talking faster than he meant to. The plans, the Monday resets, the guilt, the phone, the feeling of watching his own potential rot in real time. And the librarian, Mr. Warwick, just listened. No judgment, no "you need to want it more," just silence that made honesty feel safe. When Carter finally stopped, embarrassed by how much he'd said, Mr. Warwick reached behind him and pulled out a thin, worn notebook. Not a textbook, not a guide, a journal. He slid it across the table and opened it to the first page. A single line. "Read 30 minutes. Finished chapter 1. Stopped when I said I would stop." Carter blinked and flipped forward. Same line, different date. Again and again. For weeks, then months, then years. Mr. Warwick leaned in slightly. "Do you know how a ship stays tied to a dock?" he asked. Carter shook his head. "Not with one thick chain," Mr. Warwick said, "with a rope made of hundreds of thin threads twisted together. One thread snaps, but enough threads, built day after day, can hold something massive." He tapped the journal gently. "Discipline isn't motivation. It isn't a mood. It isn't a perfect plan. Discipline is a rope you build one thread at a time, every single day." Carter's throat tightened, because for the first time, someone wasn't selling him inspiration. They were handing him something rarer, a structure. Carter copied the lines, hand tight around the pen. "That's it?" he asked, almost disappointed, like he was waiting for some secret shortcut. Mr. Warwick nodded. "That's the rope. Everything else comes after you build it." Then he leaned in just slightly, voice calm but final. "The question isn't whether this works. It does. The question is whether you'll do it on the nights you don't feel like it. Those are the nights the rope gets stronger." Carter sat there for a moment, letting that land. No hype, no speeches, just a clean, uncomfortable truth. He folded the paper carefully and slipped it into his notebook. When he walked out of the library, nothing about him looked different. The campus lights were the same, the air was the same. His problems were still there, but one thing had changed. He wasn't waiting to feel ready anymore. He had already decided what kind of person he was going to be, quietly, privately, without asking anyone's permission. 7 p.m., 1 hour, tonight. And if this hit you in that specific place, the place where you're tired of restarting, just leave a simple 1 in the comments. Not as a promise to me, as a signal to yourself. I'm done negotiating. I'm showing up.